Brothers Grimm story, which is known as either 12 Dancing Princesses or the Worn Out Dancing Shoes. Normally the 12 Dancing Princesses. This is another soldier story. This was a soldier who was wounded in battle. So he was discharged from the king's army and left to make his own way in the world. And he was down to his last loaf of bread. And as he was walking his weary way along the road, he saw a tumble-down cottage with an old lady sitting outside. Perhaps she was spinning. I don't think the story says that, but I kind of like to think she was. She asked the soldier if he would like to come in and warm himself at her fire, and then apologised that she had no food to give him. So the two of them made a frugal meal from the last loaf of bread, which they divided between the two of them. And they fell to talking. And the king of the nearby city had issued a proclamation, and it sounded very strange to the soldier that this was what had been said. The king had no sons. He had 12 daughters. None of them were married. Every morning, next to each of the 12 princesses' bed would be a pair of worn-out dancing shoes. And they refused to tell the king, their father, where they went to go dancing. The king was so intrigued by this, he needed to know where his daughters went. But he issued a proclamation that anyone who could solve the mystery could marry one of the princesses, and so, of course, in the fullness of time, would indeed become king. So, people travelled to the castle and tried to solve the mystery. Now, all the princesses slept in one large room, and anyone who tried to accept the challenge was invited to spend the night in an adjacent room where the connecting door would be left open for them. But every night, any of the men who tried to solve this would simply fall asleep. And in the morning they would say they couldn't answer the question. And the king, who was a ruthless man, would have the unsuccessful candidate beheaded. So the soldier was so down on his luck and so hungry, he was tempted to accept the challenge and find where the princesses went dancing. The old woman said to him, "Do not accept the cup of wine that the princesses will give you. Pretend to drink it. It has a sleeping potion in it. It will send you to sleep, and your head will end up on a spike, decorating the castle like all the other people who have tried and failed." The soldier nodded. It sounded like good advice. Do you think the woman was a witch because she knew about potions? I wonder. From a chest in the corner of her room, the old woman, the wise woman, produced a cloak. She said, "Put this on, it will render you invisible, and you will be able to follow the princesses to wherever it is that they go." So everything happened as the old woman said. The oldest princess offered the soldier a cup of wine, perhaps a cup a bit like this one. Cheers. But he was cunning and very good at sleight of hand, and managed to dispose of the wine, and lay down on his own bed and pretended to snore. And he watched from half-closed eyelids as the oldest princess rapped on her bed. And there, in the middle of the room, a trapdoor opened, and steps going down. And the youngest princess said, "I do not think we should go tonight. I think something is wrong." But her older sister laughed and said, "We need to meet our princes. Nothing bad will happen, have faith." So all 12 of the princesses, who by now were wearing fine gowns and, of course, new pairs of dancing slippers, walked down the steps, followed by the soldier wrapped in his invisibility cloak. And the youngest sister, who was right at the end of the line, said, "I think there is someone else here." And her sisters said, "You're worrying without cause." The soldier drank the sleeping potion. "He cannot follow us. The door is locked. No one else can get in." So down they went. When they got to the bottom of the flight of stairs, they walked through a tunnel. And they walked through an avenue of trees with copper branches. And the soldier thought, "I must bring back proof of this." And he broke off a branch. So he was carrying a branch, copper leaves. And the youngest princess heard the crack, but her sisters didn't believe her. As they walked on a little further, they came to an avenue of trees whose leaves were all of silver, and again the soldier broke off a branch, and it gave a loud crack, but only the youngest sister heard it. Finally, they came to an avenue of trees, and of course, all the leaves there were of gold. And once again, the soldier broke off a branch. And they came to a lake, and there, waiting for them, were 12 boats, and in every boat was a handsome prince. And each princess went to her prince, stepped into the boat. And the boat containing the youngest princess and her own prince also had the soldier. And so as they rowed across the lake, the youngest princess's prince said, "The boat is heavy tonight. I am having to row with all my strength." And they arrived at the other side of the lake. The beautiful pavilion was set up with excellent musicians, the table laden with wonderful wines, sumptuous food. I bet you wish you'd been there, don't you? So the soldier ate and drank his fill on the banqueting table. And of course, as the princesses and their princes began to dance, of course, he even joined in some of the dances, although they couldn't see him. So then, as the moon began to set, princes rowed the princesses back across the lake, and the soldier followed them back up the steps. Now the soldier had 3 nights in which to solve the mystery. So the second night, the same thing happened. The third night, the same thing happened. And because the soldier already had a branch of copper and a branch of silver and a branch of gold leaves, on the third night he took with him one of the wine goblets, because of course he needed to prove to the king that his story was true, unlikely as it sounded. So, after the third night, soldier told his story to the king and showed him the wine goblet and the 3 branches. And the king was pleased that the soldier had done so well and asked him which of the princesses he would like to marry. The soldier said, "I am no longer so young. I will marry the oldest." So I wonder whether the princesses got to dance anymore after that. And I hope, although the story does not say, that the soldier gave a little of his good fortune to the wise woman. And I certainly hope he returned the invisibility cloak, because of course we know from Harry Potter that invisibility cloaks are really expensive. So that's actually quite a lovely story about a discharged soldier. I'm not